the riders have to go all the way around and try to make their way around with people, because otherwise you won't make it. Especially the more famous you are, the harder it is to go back to your motorhome.
Hey, Valerio, I'm super excited to be talking to you today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Yeah, no, it's likewise. Before we start, before we had met, what you didn't know, and I've said this in the previous podcast, is that I'm a huge Nicky Hayden fan. In fact, he's probably the only motorcycle rider that I kind of kept, not focused, but I kind of kept up with, right?
Yeah.
Even famous guys like Rossi, Marquez, I don't really follow their lives. I'm a casual fan. I'll watch MotoGP when it's on. I'll watch the clips when it's on, but I don't follow it like a hardcore racer. So when I connected with you, I was super excited because, again, I love hearing about Nicky's stories. And for all the stories and all the people that have actually met him and have been with him and were friends with him, he's an incredible human being. I mean, the lives he touched, just cool. So how did you become his PR manager?
Well, how much time do you have?
We have all the time you need.
My sort of connection, even though this is actually funny because it's something that very few people know, because obviously when I worked with Nicky Hayden, I couldn't really tell him that I have been a fan of him in the past. But it all started the year of his championship, because my girlfriend at the time kind of invited me, kind of pushed me to join this forum. Back in the days, there were all these forums, these communities. And she was like, oh no, there's this rider, he's really cool and he's really great. We have this forum, you have to join it. So I'm like, who is this? It's like, oh, his name is Nicky Hayden. I was like, oh, I know why. I know why. Yeah. Because obviously very, very, very good looking guy. So I joined. Obviously it was me and other 50, 60 girls in the forum. Yeah, I was happy to give some help. I was following racing anyway, but I never really taken part into this type of communities. So I got in there, and in the end I grew up to be a fan of his, because obviously he's, as you said, he's really an extreme. I use the present because for me he's still with us despite not being on this planet anymore. So I joined, and I decided actually to be part of it. I kind of managed the whole thing, and yeah, back in the days there wasn't that much data privacy, so I kind of figured out where he lived and found some stuff about him and stuff. But I go to back to it later. But in that forum, then a journalist at the time kind of noticed me and said, "You want to work for this website I'm working with?" I'm like, "Sure. I mean, why not?" So I started working from that website, and then we founded a website on our own. And after that, I started getting the first jobs in World Superbike, writing for the Italian side of WSBK.com. And in 2012, I got my first job as press officer. So I started with a BMW Motorrad Italia team in Superbikes. And after that, I started working with the organizers. So that was the year of transition between Flamini, which was the old promoter, to Dorna, the actual promoter, which is MotoGP as well, mainly MotoGP. So I worked there 3 years, one in Rome, because they hadn't had time to move the offices and stuff. And then I moved to Barcelona. And after that, I left. And I was hired by an agency that was managing the Honda World Superbike. And funnily enough, this guy who was not only a director but a press officer at the time for the team, he wanted to step back. And we were in Portimao, and he said something like, "Val, where's your contract with Dorna expire?" I'm like, it doesn't expire, it's permanent. And then I was like, wait, you offered me a job? And he started laughing. And he said, yeah, I would like to step down a little bit, so I'm looking for a replacement. I'm like, man, you just tell me how much, what you want me to do, and I'll tell you something about it. So then we agreed to work. And then at some point he said, I don't think we're going to renew with Simba Gitoli, who was the rider at the time. I think we're going to get Nicky Hayden. I was like, are you kidding me? Seriously?
That's crazy.
Okay, that's something weird, you know. But yeah, then I started working with him and spent first year. He won in Sepang. He did well despite the bike being very old. And yeah, in 2017, even in 2016, funnily enough, I ended up in Owensboro to shoot some, you know, to shoot like a sort of movie. It was called Honda Behind the Bars, not behind the bars like in jail. It's like behind the handlebars. And yeah, in the morning when I was there, he messaged me and I said, so what time we're gonna meet up? Oh, this and that. And said, but where? I asked him, and he told me, "Oh, at my parents' place. This is the address." And I look at the address, and I remember it by heart, and I was like, "Of course it is." That's because I knew it from back then. So yeah, it was nice. We had a wonderful time. I was able to see where he lived and stuff, and yeah, we worked throughout the year, and yeah, needless to say how professional he was. I can't say I was a friend of his because, you know, it's working relationship.
Sure.
But he was so professional, so committed, and every time there was something going on, he was messaging me and say, "What time is this? What time is that?" Always coming up with different questions and stuff about how he would like to think things to be done and always on time, incredibly on time every time. And yeah, getting up close, I could see the way he was working. It was really, when he was at the races, he was only thinking about racing and doing his best training and stuff. So it was really a great experience for me, which unfortunately ended up in the way we know. And yeah, it wasn't an easy thing, you know. um, the day I received the news of his accident, it was the day after my birthday. It was the 17th of May in 2017, and I just had a great time at home. So I was just going back. I was in Milan because it was after Imola, so I went back to Milan to see my parents, just flying back. And I got the email just before I was boarding on the plane, so I couldn't get off.
Wow.
And so I spent like 1 hour, 15 minutes on the plane without knowing what was happening. I was actually literally speaking on the phone with my boss at the time, and there was a lady complaining because we were actually about to take off and I was still speaking on the phone. So it was like, can you stop the call? And I just took the phone up and was like, yeah, but there's a guy who's just had an accident, you know? I was just about to break down in tears. And yeah, during the flight, like, I just didn't know what to think, you know. It's impossible to imagine. And then I spoke to a stewardess and I said, look, please, as soon as we're about to land, just place me at the front on the first row because I need to get out of this damn plane as soon as I can. And as soon as we landed and I turned the phone on, I received like 1 million messages and calls, you know. Everybody wanted to know. And yeah, I mean, the most difficult thing about those days is that we knew he was not going to make it. We knew, but we couldn't say it. Right. So every time somebody asked me, all the journalists wanted to know, I just had to, you know, say that's the situation, even though deep down I knew where this was gonna end. because obviously the brain injuries were
severe.
kind of too hard, too serious for a surgery to actually repair or do something about it. So they kept it going just to assess the situation and see what could be done with it. But the fact is that there was nothing really that could be done. So it was kind of a tough situation for myself, because I wasn't needed back in Cesena in Italy, where he was actually hospitalized. So I was actually doing everything remotely from Barcelona. And obviously tough for everyone who was involved and all the family and stuff. And hats off to the family for the way they managed it. And they even showed up at Laguna the same year, which is something that I would have thought about 10, 20 times before going there. Even Jackie, his girlfriend at the time, can you imagine what she's been through? Lovely girl, incredibly strong girl. She's really a role model, and she was there and she was smiling and everything. And yeah, there was a farewell to him in Donington Park after his death, and Laguna. And in the the really nice thing that in the paddock, after years, I see people with his shirt, his cap, everywhere still. So he's gone but not forgotten for sure. You know?
Yeah, I find that really incredible because from everything I've heard, everything I've seen, everything I've noticed about him, and I'm noticing as a visual outside fan, I've never come within, 100 yards of him, right? 1,000 yards of him, right? But just how down to earth he was, how much of a normal guy, even though he was a world champion in MotoGP, he was a normal guy. If you saw him in a grocery store and you didn't know who he was, and you needed your groceries picked up or something, he probably would have let you said, "Oh yeah, I'm in a rush, but go ahead. If you only have that one lemon you need to buy, go ahead in front of me." Like that's the type of guy he is. And what's amazing to me is he really transcends the sport of motorcycling because, again, like look at Instagram today. How many people are still actively posting pictures of him, stories about him, how they still remember him on their bikes, on their shirts, on their hats, right? Just last week, I was actually looking at buying his 2006 Tizzo watch that he won. I was ready to buy that watch. When it came out, I'm like, wow, I'm going to buy this watch, even though it was like $600 US. And I'm like, I don't have $600 US to spend, but I go, I really want this watch. I kind of talked myself out of it now. And now that I think about it, I really regret not having it, right? I'm just one of those guys who are not very, I try not to fanboy out. I try not to get too crazy about anybody because I know at the end of the day, if he was alive today and he was next to me, I would never go running up to him and go, "Oh my God, let's get a selfie together." I'm just not that guy.
And that's very important for them too, because at the end of the day, their riders, as famous as they are, as skilled as they are human beings, and they're not as much different as we are. So I noticed that the more you treat them as human beings rather than stars and icons, the more, even if you're a chance, you may get the best response out of them. Because if you can imagine, you're one, and you have in front of you 1,000 people screaming for you. I would be a little bit scared, not scared, but it would be like in a situation where, wait, and still, Nicky always had time for everybody, and it's like great commitment from him and other riders to always be available. But there are a lot of fans who always want a piece out of you. And it could be one, it could be 10, it could be 100, 1,000. It can get a little bit under your skin after a while. So my suggestion is that no matter how much of a fan you are, just remember that you have a human being in front of you, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and make sure that it's sure that they're surely gonna react in a different way the moment that you see that you're not a threat. You're not a threat in real, for real, but
Yeah.
you just don't wanna,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can contain yourself. You're not
Yeah,
gonna.
you can behave. You always have a few seconds more for you.
Yeah.
For sure. They notice that.
So after that, what are you up to now? I know you are the host of a brand new podcast.
Thank you. Who
And
told you that?
yeah, well, I actually, right, I did watch a little bit, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't watch it all. But I did start watching. But the little I heard is interesting. Now, what's exciting to me is I am not a fan of electronic motorcycles because I have never ridden one.
Yeah.
Okay, now I do drive an electric car. Okay, so I understand that.
Full electric or hybrid?
Full electric, full on electric.
Which
Okay,
one?
I'm not sponsored by them, so I'm not gonna say right now.
Good point.
So
Sorry for
come hit
asking.
me up after, subscribe and like my channel, and I'll tell you, and I'm definitely will mention you.
You have a
The
good
point is,
point, but you never know. Maybe the
right?
next episode they're gonna do something about it.
And I know they're hurting for money, so let's get it done, right?
Yeah.
The point is, from a bike's point of view, I still have my motorcycle. I like my bikes loud. I still like my aftermarket exhaust. But the e-bike doesn't really have that. So in terms of watching the sport with all the sights and the sound, do you lose a little bit when there's no sound?
It's a different experience, First of all, I suggest the brand I work for, Energica, has well, you're based in Canada, but we have a branch in US. First thing I would like to say to everybody before coming to judge the e-bikes, just try them and make yourself an opinion about it, because we had one full season with MotoE as single manufacturer, and I got through the first test and I had no idea what to expect. And then at the end of the day, it's a racing bike,
Yeah.
And that's basically, I think, for my boss and everybody involved, is the best thing you could hear, because that's what they're there for. They're racing. So even riding, obviously we're at the early stages in terms of presence on the market. It's not, especially bikes. Cars are a lot further ahead. But still try it, because there's no better way to make yourself an opinion about an e-bike if you don't try it. Our bike, the Energica bikes, are made in such way that they have a higher range. The riding range is a lot higher than other bikes, because they have a bigger battery and they have some electronics and done so that the range can go up to 400 Ks in urban mode. Obviously, it's a little bit less in mixed and MotoE and full speed, but it's a thing to try. Even though I guess even you, when you switched to the electric car, I mean, I drove an electric car as well, and I was like, oh, I was impressed, And in my point of view, in my opinion, but that's just my personal opinion, I'm not too much a fan of noise in general. I could actually think about a future. Can you imagine a big city like the one you live in or the one I live in, completely without the sound of petrol engine? How much more livable it would be. Because we talk about pollution in terms of gases and the pollution, but noise pollution is a thing. We've grown used to have it in the background, but it's something that affects you in any way. So from my point of view, the day that electric vehicles will be all around and will have kind of replaced petrol engine vehicles on the street, it would be a great thing. Obviously, from a racing side, we are a newcomer as a class. And I would like to say we're not taking away any track time from anybody. It's an extra class, so it's extra racing.
Sure.
We haven't taken away from competition Moto3 or Moto2. There's just MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3, Rookies Cup, and MotoE. And it's a different thing. And I can't say, the level of performances at the moment is, especially compared to MotoGP, is nowhere near there. MotoGP is going to be the pinnacle of motorsport for so many more years, at least on two wheels. But it's something new, so why not? I mean, MotoGP builds upon the decades and decades of experience, petrol engine has. Electric vehicles are just kind of sort of new, relatively new to the industry and to racing. So there's big room for improvement. We're not quite there yet, but we will get there at some point, I guess.
Of course, yeah. It's
racing.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, and the racing was fun. It's a short race. It's all identical bikes, which makes it fun because it's all down to the rider. And yeah, I think a lot of people changed their mind about the racing itself because they've seen riders able to lean, riders able to slide, to overtake each other. So why not? I see why not.
How many laps is it per race?
Around 7, 8. So a really short race.
Okay.
This year is going to improve by 1 lap. Last year was around 7. This year about 8 because the main sponsor Enel, which is probably one of the biggest companies for electricity and energy producer in Europe, has a branch called Enel X, which is for renewable energies and things. Have developed a sort of, it's called juice roll. It's a sort of device that you can bring on the grid and kind of top up the level of charge and put it to full just before the race, and that allows for a one more lap. Obviously, right now the bike technically could do a bit more laps, but the promoters want to guarantee that all the bikes have full power throughout the race.
Right.
So there's no low down, and they just want to be very safe. Obviously, because it's a new series. But obviously, with the technological improvements on batteries and things, which hopefully and surely will come in the future, those bikes would not only be a bit lighter, but maybe will be, they will last a bit longer, and in terms of riding range, and will allow for a longer race. But still, sometimes, how many times I think, maybe 7, 8 laps, not that much, but 24, 26 lap in a MotoGP race, I don't really watch all of them. There's always a point where I just stand up and grab myself a beer or something because it's a kind of a dead zone in the middle. So it's a different thing. So watching a race for 7 laps, it's a straight fight. Everybody against each other. May the best win. We've seen the battles that were good. So I suggest that whoever hasn't watched it yet, just give it a try. Why not?
And you guys race on the exact same tracks. You follow our cadence of the MotoGP guys. Moto2, Moto3.
This year we're supposed to be 5 tracks. Now, who knows? The calendar is still, being amended, and they're trying to squeeze in the races and see, depending on the evolution of the coronavirus as well, the pandemic. So yeah, we race on the same tracks. Yeah, we have our own sessions, the races, and some tracks we have as one individual race. There are 2 races in the last 2 technically on the calendar. There are 2 races on the same weekend. The last 2 races, it's quite fun. It's quite fun.
So without the noise, do the racers find it easier or harder to race against each other without noise? Because you would think that, I've done track days, you can sort of hear the guy coming up, right?
Yeah. I don't have the. I can only say what they say. Obviously, I think you should ask them in first place because they surely know better than I do. I'm only writing the press releases at the end of the day. But they say it takes a little bit to get used to, but in the end, it's not that much of a difficult thing.
Have you taken a ride on them?
Not on the
not on the
no.
Same as Modi, no?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's all. Not yet. You'll get there.
Yeah, but we did. The media tried the bike. Some selected media tried the bike last year in Valencia after the season finale, which was really cool because it was a few years since the last time there was a proper media test of MotoGP bike. With MotoGP bikes they used to do it, but then they stopped. So it was a good chance for the media to actually try firsthand. Obviously there are media who are ex-riders or testers who can always obviously go a little faster than others, but each of them can could make themselves an idea about how the bike is. And I mean, I wouldn't say otherwise, but we got some good feedback from them. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
How different is the MotoE bike than what you were able to buy on the street for it? Like if you were to buy it on the street.
Well, our CTO and R&D started using the base of our actually sport bike called the Ego. And they started from there, and they started to make some modifications. And obviously there's different suspensions, different tires, and all sorts of things. They were able to take out a little bit of weight and make it more like a racing thing. It has some parts in common, but obviously the race bike is on another level. But still, the street bike is very enjoyable as well. Absolutely.
What is the name of the street bike again?
The street bike is called the Ego. I guess you would say Ego. Yeah.
Okay. How do you spell that?
Ego.
Oh, Ego. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. My Canadian accent is Ego. Right.
You would say Ego there in Canada.
Yeah, we say Ego. Yeah. I think well, that's how I'd say it.
I say Ego. I always get confused.
Yeah. Hey, don't worry. You and I are both ESL. We're both ESL students, right? English as a second language. We're both English as a second language. So
that's correct.
we're okay to screw it up. No one can say anything.
I'm actually happy the way I speak English because normally people are used to a different type of English coming from Italians. So I've always been blessed with this ability of making myself a bit clearer.
Oh, for sure. No, your English is fantastic. Where did you grow up in? I mean, obviously,
I grew up in the outskirts of Milan, Italy, and I've lived there until I was 30, and then I moved 1 year to Rome, and then in Barcelona. For those years, I was traveling a lot for work because I was working full time in World Superbike, which is not as busy as MotoGP, but there's still like 13, 14 rounds. So
you traveled a lot.
Yeah, right. I can't say the same right now.
Yes, yeah. I've been to Italy. I've only been to Rome. I've been to Naples for a day. And with all due respect, it wasn't not my favorite place. I didn't really like Naples too much.
It can be love and hate. It's a pretty interesting city, but I think the best way to know Naples if you know someone who lives there, because can take you to the places and they will make you part of the family. Which is very important. It's kind of always the thing in Italy because we're like, if you know an Italian person, it will open their doors to you and it will make you feel part of the family. Surely it will feed you. They will feed you a lot.
Yeah. No, we did. When I went to Rome, I hooked up with a person who ran an Airbnb, and she was just amazing. Like absolutely amazing. You know, yeah. So, and I felt like one of the family. And what's really good about that is, again, because they know you, they tell you to stay away from the tourist area. They go, here, eat where the locals eat. This is where we go when we go out. And go. You're not gonna understand English. I'll show you what pork chop is in Italian.
Yeah.
I'll show you a beef is Italian. You point to it and they'll be good. So it was really funny.
Oh, you try the porchetta? Because
Yes.
it's oh
Yes.
my God, it's my favorite.
It's good. It was funny because when I went to the restaurant, it was very local, and obviously they knew I didn't speak the language. Yeah. And when the waiter came, there was 3 pork chops on the plate, but he dropped one on the way here. And he looked at the plates, he looked at me, and he kind of went, he doesn't speak Italian English. Who's it going to complain to? And he gave it to me.
Oh,
and then so then I looked up in the dictionary and I was able to piece together, my God, he dropped my pork chop on the ground. And I kept saying it over and over until everybody around me was laughing. But I left it as that. I'm like, look, I'm not a local. It's not a big deal. I was just happy. It's a great story to tell my friends.
But,
no.
If there's one advice I would like to give to non-Italians when they visit Italy, most of times if someone refrains from speaking to you, it's not because they're unpolite. It's just because they're scared to speak English. They always panic when somebody comes over and speaks English. They're like, you know, how many times I was, you know, with friends who did not speak Italian. I was talking to English to them, and they saw me coming in, and they were like all scared. And I will tell them, I'm Italian. And we're like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. But my favorite places, I did go to Sorrento, and that was very beautiful.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
There are so many places there worth a visit. I actually have to come to Toronto as well because, you know, I got a pretty big passion for NBA. So
okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, come stay at my place. You don't need a hotel, all right?
No, that would be great. I know it's quite an expensive city, so thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, it's become quite expensive, oddly enough. People are already saying that right now, if you have kids, your kids will not be able to afford a place without your parents' help. So it's I didn't ask my parents for money. Huh?
That's not a good prospect for the future.
No, not at all. And everything is just very expensive. In fact, we've discouraged Airbnb a lot. In fact, they've had some recent changes to the law that basically says you can't own an Airbnb like you can a little hotel. But if you go to other countries, like I've been to Taiwan, I've been to Taipei, that whole building is basically Airbnb. It's just basically a cheap hotel.
They're trying. I'm based in Barcelona now, and they try to do the same. And it's a big problem with all the holiday homes and Airbnb because not only the prices have gone up for renting in general, but it's hard to find a decent place because if you think about it, you can rent this place during summer and you would earn the same or more money than you would earn from a family living there full time. So if you're a private, you think, what should I do? Like, I can get more money from putting it on Airbnb or use it as a holiday home. And that's kind of creating a big bubble here. Well, not now because there are no tourists, but it did create a big bubble in Barcelona with a lot of families being forced to move out of the city because from one year to the other, they got their rent doubled because the owners knew that they would find somebody like someone coming from other countries such as north of Europe where they actually earn 3 times more than people earn here who could actually afford a rent of 1,400 euros rather than a rent on 700. No problem. It would almost be cheap for them. So
yeah. When I was in Barcelona, I've been to Barcelona 4 years in a row. I used to travel for work, right? I travel for work. I did the Mobile World Congress trade show, right? So you know how crazy that is. But and there was one year where I stayed extra by myself. And it was crazy because the Airbnb I rented from, and the guy's like, yeah, this is my home, but I'd rather rent this out and pay my friend, my best friend, money to stay at his place when I'm renting out all these rooms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So,
what don't you do for to make a living, you know?
yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah. So back to the Ego bike. That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier before we talk about.
The racing version is called the Ego Corsa.
Okay.
The Ego is the street version, but that's just it.
Okay, so that
bosses will kill me if I don't use the proper naming.
fair enough. I get it. So the Ego Corsa is the bike that you race with, and Ego is what I could buy in a couple of next year when you get
we actually have 3 models, but the Ego is the actual sport version with more torque, with fairings. You know, they're the proper sport fairings and things. So
how long does it take to charge one of these guys?
We actually have fast charge, where I think before now there's also Harley Davidson that has fast charge, but I think we're kind of the only ones who mount a fast charge. So with the fast charge, we can go with the new battery, when the 1.5 kilowatt battery, we can charge from 0 to 80%. I think in around 40 minutes or something like that.
Wow, that's quick.
Yes, that's what really makes the difference. You know, not only we have a bigger battery, so longer riding range, we also have fast charge, which is a big plus. You know, because 40 minutes is still 40 minutes is slower than going to the gas station, but you can have a meal, you can have a coffee, you can relax, and it will not take that much. Plus, I don't see anybody who would ride more than 250, 300 kilometers without stopping,
Right. Well, for me, I gauge it by how long it takes to charge because I need to go to work and back. For me, it's not so much the washroom break or the lavatory break or the coffee break. It's more like, okay, I gotta get to work, and maybe when I travel for work, I'm in the office for an hour, and then I go to a customer site or whatever. I need to know that I can top up. And if you're telling me 0 to 80% in 40 minutes,
if there's a fast charge station, yes. The thing is, they're expanding the network a lot more, especially now with Tesla and stuff. But yeah, no, you can do it, and I think with the riding range that our bike has, you could easily do whatever you would like to do and still go home and have some charge left. And you can do fast charge and slow charge at home easily. So you can plug it in a normal plug and and make it work. So I think you wouldn't have any problem with that. How much distance do you cover to go to work?
For me, it's 50 kilometers one way. So it's not too bad.
I think you would be easy with that. No problem.
Right. Yeah. Tesla charging. Can you use Tesla chargers? No, right? You need to buy an adapter, or it just doesn't work. If you were to plug a bike.
I'm not sure, because actually I'm more a press officer on the MotoE side, so I'm afraid I don't know all that kind of information.
Yeah.
But we use the DC combo charge. So DC combo 2 should be. And well, it depends on from country to country. There are different limits. So I'm not sure about the specifics overseas. But yeah, the network is improving for sure. So I'm quite confident that Tesla has its own separate chargers. Why not?
Well, what I know is in North America for Tesla, you can buy an adapter to charge to a Tesla station, but it's still locked. From what I understand, it's still locked by the person who owns that Tesla station at the mall or at the convenience store. If they allow it, then you can buy an adapter and you can charge pretty much any EV, any bike or any car that you want, but it's still governed by an electronic lock of some sort. So,
well, it's a little bit like Apple and the different chargers and things. If you invest on the network of chargers, you So you might want those to be dedicated to your brand, I guess.
Yeah.
Makes sense on a business point of view.
Yeah.
Makes sense if you're a consumer, you want to buy a different car, but no, we're actually there's a lot of presence. Our headquarters in US are actually in San Francisco.
Okay.
And electric EV in California is going, and especially US, is going really well. There are a lot of cars. There are even European car brands that make electric vehicles specifically for the US market. I mean, right now, the Fiat 500. It's been for years in US, and now it's coming to Europe. It's funnily enough, from.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's coming to Europe only now, but it was always in the US first, and
Huh.
people like, damn it, I would like to have one, but it's only US.
Yeah, but the 500E would not fit in Barcelona, Milan, or Rome, and in those places. You guys really know how to park. That's one thing I really found funny and amazing about Europeans, right? Italians and Spanish people, at least people in Barcelona, is you can park anywhere. If your car fits, you're good. Here, dude, you're gonna get so many parking tickets. It'll make your head spin.
Actually, it's in Barcelona. Things have changed through the years. Now we have the green lines and the blue lines, which are only for residents, and you can pay per hour. But free parking has become almost like a legend anymore. And also in Milan, the same thing. Back in the days, it was different, yeah.
Right.
But there's something I've actually never been to Canada. I must say, and I'm sorry. The only reference I have is US, and the signals for parking in US are insane. They're just like so many information that I was like, I'm like, can you actually write me, yes, you can park here, or no, you can't?
Yeah.
Just tell me if I can or if I can't. It's only 15 minutes, only if on those days, on that time, only depending on the month. I mean, I exaggerated now, but it's just
No, it's true. No,
it's confusing.
it's just as bad in Toronto. You'll get signs where it's like no parking Monday to Friday between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m.
Yeah.
No parking between those times and on the weekends unless you have a parking permit clearly displayed. And if you display it on the wrong side of the dashboard, they give you a ticket anyway. And when you go fight it, you go, wow, it clearly says you got to place it on the driver's side or on the passenger side. And you're like, come on.
It's just next to it,
Yeah.
That's incredible. When I go around with my friends, I always like the bothering kid on the side saying, there's a free parking there. And they're like, no, you can't park there. Why not? What about there? No. What about there? No. What about there? No. And I kept saying, and like, come on, just bloody park the car,
Does the car fit? Yes.
Yeah.
Would it hit another car? No. Well, the car hit it if it was there. No. What's the problem?
Yeah, and in Europe in general, we have because our streets are so narrow, there's not much space. You have to learn how to park the car because might have like a tiny, tiny little room. You just have to make it stick, So you just have to try your best, and you see some creative parking that sometimes that just makes you laugh, The parking position that you're like, even in Milan, where I grew up, there are so many times on the actual sidewalk that people park the car on the sidewalk, and they say, as long as people can go past, then I can park there. And they're actually, most times they don't find, because technically there's not enough parking for everyone, so you have to do it this way, So you see everything. You see everything and anything.
So do you still have family back in Milan?
I do have my dad in Milan, and my mom is not here with us anymore. She passed away a couple of years ago. But my sister lives in Germany, so we're both kind of, went different directions, but outside of Italy for different reasons. So my dad is still there, and he's doing okay despite the coronavirus, and he's 72, going for 73. So he's kind of in, in the range of the possible, kind of the age gap is kind of not easy, but he's doing fine. So I'm really relieved about that. Obviously, he cannot go out that much and stuff. And Milan is kind of a red zone in Italy for coronavirus. It's really, 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 really tough. But he's doing fine. My sister is doing fine. In Germany, they're a bit more relaxed because they kind of handle the situation better than Italy and Spain. And they're all doing well.
Okay, I'm glad to hear, because when you say family Milan, you're like, from over here we hear it's super bad. For all the news we have, there's no positive news coming out of there. So I'm very glad that at least your dad's okay.
The death toll has lowered compared to before. And now they're kind of easing some restriction, but to go back to the life as before, it will take time. For sure, it will take time.
Now, do you get to ride today? Do you still have a bike?
No, I don't have a bike anymore. I don't have a bike here. I don't have a car. I actually walk around Barcelona. I have used public transport. Since I moved away from Milan and from Rome, I thought, you know what, I live in a big city. It has very good public transport. And I said, I want to see how's life without a vehicle. And truth to that, it fits my way of being perfectly, I still drive and stuff when I'm traveling, but I just like it, It just feels, for me, it's just like not having something I have to think about. I don't have my car parked down. I have to see if I have to move it or not. I got so many fines in the past because I was leaving it when they were actually cleaning the streets, so I was getting it the whole time because I forgot.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do maintenance. You don't have to do insurance and stuff.
Yes.
Public transport in Barcelona is very good and very cheap. Plus, I like to walk around. It's not as much of a big city as the ones you find overseas or others such as Paris or Berlin or London. So easy to walk around. It's lovely. And no, I don't need it. I'm really kind of an unusual presence in the paddock who doesn't really fancy the four-wheel vehicles or two-wheel vehicles in his life. So, but that's the way I am. I know it might be boring for some spectators, but
no. I get it. I mean, I grew up in Hong Kong, so in Hong Kong there is zero need. In fact, you're kind of a bit of an idiot if you decide to own a car. First of all, buying a car, I think, is like 100% tax.
Wow.
Right?
Really?
Yeah, I think it's crazy, something like that. Yeah, I mean, I should have researched it before I said those, but in my mind, as I remembered, and as what my friends tell me, is it's 100% tax in Hong Kong. So if you see a guy in a Lamborghini, you know how much money he has because he's paying double.
Yeah, and the problem here in Barcelona is that if you got the car, unless you want to get out of town, you have a garage on your own. But the thing is, even if you go to the center with a car, it's so hard to find parking. I literally go out of my place. I could take, right now I can't, but I could take the metro, and in 15 minutes, I'm in the center. So why would I? Why would I?
Yeah.
Even in the city center, but it's still so close. I'm like, why would I? You know?
Like my sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just saying I want to drink a bit more. I just want to go back. If I'm too tired and transport is not there, I take a taxi. It's 10 euros. I go back home. You know?
That's perfect. Yeah, I was just saying that my uncle who drives, we've driven to places, and I did the math, and I go, Uncle, I think we saved like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because getting from where we live to the restaurant, for example, okay, you're right. It's 15 minutes faster, 20 minutes faster. But it takes 15 minutes to get to a parking spot where you can pay, right? Yeah. It's not the fact that you can't afford parking. It's the fact that there's no parking spots, even if you can afford it.
Yeah, correct. So, that's my whole life here. I hope I'll be able to walk around a bit more now. They allow us to walk in different specific times in the morning, at night, depending on your age. So if you're between 14 and 65 years old, I'm 15, no, I'm kidding. You can walk from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. You can have a walk around and go for running. But you can't get technically you can't get too far away from home because otherwise everybody will go to the beach and stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will ease this restriction further in a week, so you'll be able to to enjoy a beer somewhere on the terrace or go to the beach and see the sea, even if you don't live that close.
Yeah. Good. Getting back to MotoGP, one of the things I want to ask you specifically is, what was it like the very first time you were in the MotoGP paddock? What is that like? The excitement, the craziness. What was that like for a 15-year-old?
I entered the MotoGP paddock very late because I stayed in Superbike for so many years. So the first time I actually entered the paddock, I think I've been to a race before, but I entered the paddock as somebody who actually has a job in it. Was last year at Sachsenring, and they always kind of depict MotoGP as a sort of higher, more business-oriented, a bit colder environment, the World Superbikes and other series. But I got there, and I just found a lot of friendly people, which I really, really liked. I mean, there are so many people I knew. I thought I was going to know anybody, but with the fact that I worked in Dorna for a few years, and the fact there are a lot of former Superbike people, I just basically spent my first day actually talking to people because I haven't seen in a while. So it's actually great. I mean, if you haven't been to a race before in general, like what you see by MotoGP riders, I mean, what you see on TV is something, but seeing them live, it's like they're insane. Like the leaning angle, the speed.
Yeah.
It blows you up. Like it's really, 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 really incredible. I was so impressed. And obviously, compared to a World Superbike, there's a lot of people going around. Like even in the paddock, even if you can't afford paddocks are not paddock passes, hard cards are not for sale. But still, there are a lot of sponsors and friends, a lot of passes, and there's a lot of people inside the paddock.
Right.
And that's races like especially Italian ones and the Spanish ones. The riders really have to go all the way around and try to make their way around with people because otherwise you won't make it. Especially the more famous you are, the harder it is to go back to your motorhome.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's nice place. I really like it. They're doing a great job in my opinion. If MotoGP has got up to a status of celebrity, especially in Europe, that was never seen before in terms of two wheels. Like it's proper business and proper sports broadcast the right way across all countries. And it's something that it's a very desirable series for countries and entrepreneurs. And you know that if you bring MotoGP and if you're in a country that MotoGP is famous, think about Indonesia, Can you imagine the first GP in Indonesia, how it would be like? Given how crazy they are about motorcycles?
Yeah.
I mean, I was there in 2018 in Indonesia for motocross, MXGP. I was working for motocross in 2018, and motocross is nowhere as famous as MotoGP, and it was still packed with people going crazy. Can you imagine when MotoGP goes there? It's gonna be insane.
I mean, absolutely bonkers.
Nuts. which is lovely because I love people from there, and it's just I had the best of times. Like there's such kind-hearted people, Thailand, Indonesia, all the places in Southeast Asia I've been there. Wonderful people, and I could see them. I could see them going crazy. For that.
Yeah, it's crazy because you know what? There is a common theme, okay? There really is a common theme through, the 7 or 8 podcasts I've done so far is how many people are just in love with the Thais and Thailand in general. I myself am a huge favorite. Other than the fact that I'm not a citizen and I can never own a piece of land, honestly, that's where I would retire. It's such a beautiful country. The people are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm a person who loves to smile. I smile all the time. Like I like to smile to my friends, but even if I cross paths with someone on the street, I just if we cross, if we end up looking at each other, I just smile because I like it.
yeah,
And obviously, in the so-called Western world, it's something that doesn't happen too often, especially in Europe, because people are kind of wary, who the hell are you? Um, but there, they're like, you smile, and this give you a even bigger smile. And it's like, I always say smile is for free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it
right,
makes other people happy, and it
right.
makes you happy. So, seeing all those people smiling, so helpful, it just warms my heart, and I love it. I just love it. I just had such a good time.
Well, that's why you and Nikki got along so well.
Yeah, yeah,
Try to
no,
outsmile each other.
no, yeah, he had a much better smile than I have, but yeah, I try my best for sure.
So, is there going to be racing this year? Do you think?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. If MotoGP starts, we start. Yeah.
Okay. Are
There's
they?
been the press release like a few days ago saying that Dorna is actually in conjunction with the government of Andalusia and the mayor of Jerez is proposing a double event, that double header in Jerez in July, and now we're gonna see if it happens or not. But I think this year, despite of that, because that it has to be seen given the evolution of the pandemic in Spain, which is kind of improving. We'll have to see how it evolves, but I think at some point, I don't know how many races, I don't know in what shape, and if closed doors or if they open to the public later on. But for sure, we're gonna see some racing this year. I mean, that's the feeling that I have. I don't want to give false promises, but that's the
Of
feeling that
course.
I have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, nobody knows at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, no, no,
But
absolutely. But
I
even other series like Formula One, they say, "Oh, we're not gonna race." Then you're gonna race. If there's a chance, it has to be done, and it obviously in compliance with all the rules and all the safety kind of regulations and everything. But if there's a chance, they'll surely do it. Sure.
Is there a minimum amount of races that has to be raced in order to be called a true season?
I I don't think so. I mean, I think normally there would be, but given the how exceptional is the situation this year, I don't think that rule will apply because, you know, the idea right now is to race, and everybody
Yeah,
wants to race.
yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe they'll give you half a trophy, half of the kind of play that they put on the thing. I don't know,
Uh, uh,
but
uh.
but for sure, I think we're gonna race. Yeah,
they're,
whether
they're, they're,
whether it's July or August or September, I think it will start at some point for sure.
yeah. I was gonna say next year, like they will not give you a number one plate; they'll just give you a half, like a one half.
Yeah, there's kind of one divided per two, like
Yeah,
a
1.5 or point
zero
0.5.
point 0.5.
0.5 winner. You only did 7 races. We normally do 13, so we'll give you a 0.06.
Yeah, exactly. You happy with it? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have much of a choice, but I hope you're okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so I'll
better
give
than
you.
nothing anyway.
Yeah, I think I wonder. And now again, I don't really follow racing intensely. I know that Jorge said he retired. He doesn't want to do it. He might be in a wild card. Do you think he'll come back? Simply, he's had the rest, he's had the break, and now he's, what do you think?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I would love that because
Yeah.
he's such an impressive rider. The way he rides. Again, if you see him live, the way kind of like his laser in the corner, so precise, so smooth. And I would love to see him again. I would love to see him happy to race again,
Yeah.
because you never want to, despite you might like a rider or not, you might have a sympathy, a kind of you might be a fan of his or not. You never want to see a rider struggle, because a rider always has to have the top confidence in what he does. By the time he start doubting about his skills or his talent or his speed, you kind of get in a downward spiral that it's kind of hard to get out from, and you never want to see that, especially from a three-time world champion such he is.
Exactly.
So, and honestly, I got to meet him in the past, not recently, but in the past, like between 2010 2012. So the other two races, and honestly, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah, he is. He's I always say that there are some riders who are made to be in front of a camera.
Yeah.
Others who aren't, don't feel as comfortable being in front of a camera. So if you have it, then you might be perceived as a nicer guy in comparison to a guy who can be as nice but not as comfortable in front of a camera. I mean, we're doing this right now. I'm trying to be as comfortable as I can, but I'm still in front of a webcam.
Right.
And no disrespect, I know you're in front of me anyway, but it's not easy. It's not the same thing to be in front of a camera and just talk to a friend. There's some people who have it, and some people who don't. I can think of a good friend of Jorge is Max Biaggi, and Max Biaggi, I've always had great time. I mean, the little I talk to him, the little like I kind of have stuff to do with him at the paddock in the past and stuff. I always got along with him pretty well. So everybody, we're all sorts of characters in our own way. So
Yes.
we all have people who like us and people who don't like us, and that same happens to them. What's important is what they do on track, and how much entertainment they give us by racing at the pinnacle of motorsports or whatever other series it is. So we're not made to be constantly on the spotlight 24/7.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be as judged for how they appear on camera. That's my personal opinion. That's I can see how difficult it can be for them to constantly having to adjust what they say to be politically correct based on what happens, especially after a race when they're just tired and maybe they're upset about the results, and maybe they just have to come up with the right answer. Otherwise, they're gonna build up a little bit of a fuss because of what they say. So it's not an easy job to be to that side of being a rider. I think they're more comfortable surely being on the track than giving an interview.
Yeah.
So.
Is there somebody? And you don't have to answer this. We can even edit this out if you have to. But is there somebody in the paddock you look at and you go, I don't understand why this guy is not winning more races. He really should be. Is there somebody in the roster that you're like, come on, why is this guy not winning?
That's a good question, because there are a lot of riders in the history that arrived just at the wrong time. When there was someone else at the top that could have easily been champions, and it just wasn't meant to be for them, just because they were just maybe because of the situations that happen, maybe because of the races of injuries, or maybe because they couldn't feel right with the bike. The variables in racing are so much more than we can think of. I remember, you always, especially if you work in the paddock, you hear other people, especially like fans who can watch the races and say, oh, but he's on a Yamaha the same as Valentino or Jorge. Why is he not as fast as he is? I'm like, as they are. I'm like, well, because A is not the same Yamaha, B is not the same team, and and maybe they're not in the right place at the right time. Maybe they don't have the same experience. There are so many factors. That's why you appreciate a champion, because to be able to put everything together, make it work, and win multiple races and win multiple championships, it's no easy feat. You have in racing, you have such a small room for mistakes. That you always have to race at the very best, but try to make the least mistake possible. So going back, I would have loved Aaron Slide to win a World Superbike championship back in the days. He went second too many times, and it was kind of a shame because the guy really had the speed, but he ended up facing other riders who actually got the better of him. And right now in the paddock, I would love. I'm actually happy with what Jack Miller is doing lately. He's really stepped up, and I really like that because he has a mega talent and a mega character for the
Right.
for the paddock. And but he had to kind of find his own balance, and he's finding it. And he hasn't won enough compared to what he's able to achieve. And I would really love to see him winning more, for sure, because he also had an interesting career. He went from the entry-level class straight away to MotoGP, and that kind of, I think, in my opinion, paid its toll in the development of the rider, because he went straight to the top class, and sometimes it can be a little bit of a punch in the face when you realize how much faster at that moment the top guys are. So you're like, we have a problem here. So I would love him to win more races, and I would love him to be a proper contender in the future, for sure.
Yeah.
And he's a really nice guy. He's a really, 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 really nice guy.
Tell them to jump on my podcast.
I don't know him very much, but I'll see. I don't.
Yeah.
It would be good.
Yeah, no, it would be good, but I was totally kidding. I don't think I'm ready for that kind of responsibility.
Come on, remember that riders are human beings.
Yeah, we can say that. We can wink and go, yeah, no, you're right. But again, I will fanboy too hard. I'll be like, oh my God, Jack Miller.
Well, another thing about Nicky Hayden, before the same year in which I switched to Honda from the Superbike World Championship, I was in Laguna. I was working, most times I was working, like in Laguna we have a tent. We don't have a proper media office. We used to have tents, which got really warm in the afternoon and really cold at night. It was terrible. And it was next to the track, so you couldn't hear a thing because you hear all the bikes storming past. And there was one day Nicky was there, I guess because he was in talks, ready to switch to Superbike. And actually got a call on the radio and said, Val, there's Nicky Hayden here, and nobody can do an interview. Are you available? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like I did before, seriously? Me? I think that was the first time I saw it. No, probably I saw him once more, but actually interacted with Nicky before we started. Okay. Sorry, I'm a guy who likes to go from one to another. I'm terrible.
No,
Like,
and this is the podcast format. This is the podcast format, by the way. This is the anything goes. You know, I try not to ask too many embarrassing questions, but sometimes I want to. But I remember that at the end of the day, we are gonna put this out, and I don't want to.
If it's not too embarrassing, I'm available.
So I want to ask you another you're gonna laugh at me, very ignorant question. Okay. Mm-hmm. World Superbike, they still race twice that weekend, right? Like they still have 2 races at the weekend, right?
Right
like
now, you mean this year?
Well, yeah, right. They race one.
They raced 3 races since last year. They did 3 races on a weekend. They do a first race on Saturday, then they do a sprint race of half the number of laps on the Sunday morning, and then they do another race. That's the official race 2, which is race 3 in the afternoon. So it's like 3 races on the weekend, which is insane.
So that's what I want to ask. How are they able to do that? And everybody else, they only race once that weekend. It's possible.
Historically, Superbikes has always been 2 races, which is in one way is good because you can make up for the mistakes on the first race. On the other hand, yeah, if you destroy a bike on the Sunday morning, then race 2 is gonna be a rush for mechanics and engineers to just put the bike back together. And I had it when I saw it when I was in World Superbikes, because they moved the Super Pole. They moved the race 1 on Saturday, and they did the Super Pole on the Saturday morning. So if by any chance you destroy your bike on during the Super Pole, then to put the bike back together in time for race 1 was tough. And I can only imagine now, if you have 3 races, and with the risk involved in racing to crash during the race is probably a bit higher than during qualifying. And I can only imagine, if you find yourself you're a mechanic and you find yourself with a destroyed bike, having to put it together in time for race 2 is quite a challenge. But for me, it's nice to see. I like to see 2 races. I like the MotoE as well when we race 2 races. I like it, but I understand from the MotoGP point of view having only 1 race, because that's the combination. That's what you're there for. Take it or leave it.
Although this year it might sound like they might do double headers and more than once, so you might actually get 2 races a weekend.
It could be, but that's out of necessity. Actually, it would be a good time to experiment. You have a good time to see how it would be MotoGP with 2 races in a weekend. But there are so many classes right now that when there's the Red Bull Rookies Cup, or there's the Asian Talent Cup, there is MotoE, Moto3, Moto2, MotoGP. Man, it's hard to fit everything in. I don't know how they did with MotoE. They're just like, wow, is there any time left? It's not an easy feat.
Yeah. So with MotoE, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say, I guess one of the things I don't know at all is what kind of tires do they run? Are they, are they specifically built? The MotoE series.
Officially, MotoGP spec tires. Yeah, they're like the soft version, and they're really great tire for sure. And especially because if you race it on a short distance, then you go full speed. I don't care about the tire wear. Just go for it, No, they're proper Michelin MotoGP spec tire. So.
Yeah. Are they developed for the MotoE bike, or are they just
they're kind of developed for the MotoE bike, but they're on the base of the MotoGP tire. So no, they're proper tire. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's something that something in media last year when they tried the bike, they actually realized, I said, God, these are proper, they're really stick, you know?
Yeah.
They're really stick.
I mean, the torques on those bikes must be insane.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Right? Because
It
it's
is.
just electric.
Well, the crazy thing, the first time I saw, you know, the start of a MotoE race, not only that we don't have the warm-up lap. So we don't, we just do the silent lap and then we start the race. Not only that, they caught me unprepared because I was always used to a warm-up lap, but the acceleration you know, getting out of, you know, the starting grid, I was like, they're gone, you know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a thing, you know. They just started, and I don't know who's first or who's second, you know. That was quite impressive. Yeah, it is. It is. On a track like Red Bull Ring, in which we raced, we were able to actually lap faster than Model 3, which, you know, for being first year is quite a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, the bike accelerates pretty fast. Yeah, I remember Simon Crafer, former 500cc race winner, World Superbike race winner, who's the pit lane reporter for Dorna for the video pass. He actually tried the bike and said, "Wow." You know, because he tried an earlier version in 2018, but it was more like a street version with race fairings. And then he tried a proper bike last year in Valencia. It was really impressed. I was like, I can't believe it. And it's
How durable are they compared to like the engine and the rest of the bike? How much more
God,
or less?
the battery lasts. I don't know exactly how long, but the thing is, MotoE is a championship which has it doesn't have a high budget, you know. It's just made, you know, as a well thought series. And so no, the batteries last for quite long, more than one race, more than one weekend for sure. You know, we don't it's actually a good thing, you know, because it's also a test. You know, for Energica, it's really important to actually try new solutions on the race bike, then had the feedback from the riders and take them back to the production models. You know, even the battery itself started. You know, we tried it on the MotoE bike, and then the new range, which was unveiled last year, has that type of battery, you know, which went from 13.5 kilowatt to the 21.5. So the range extended so much, and the weight stayed the same. So even a bit less, it was reduced by 5%. So yeah, it's for us, it's a good, really good proving ground. It's a really good benchmark for the. But that's how every manufacturer works. You know, they try the new solution on track and put it on the road. It's kind of you know, it's kind of give and take from the two sides. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, now I'm really excited to see because I have never seen a race in you know, on TV or anything like that yet.
I think right now MotoGP.com, there's a free trial of the video pass. I think they're doing it because now they obviously with no races, they want people to be interested in all the contents they make and past races. So you should give it a try. If you can do a free trial, then you can find there all the MotoE races from last year, and then you can watch it and you can tell me what you think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty good. Is there any particular shout outs or particular, you know, thing you want to say before I let you go?
No, not really. Like, yeah, well, we have this podcast of the Energica page with the MotoE riders. We have one episode per week. It's only audio with just a little bit of graphics. You can find it on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And it's basically very similar to what you do and what we just did. It's just a friendly conversation to make sure to get to know all the MotoE riders and to stay in touch with the developments and just to open the doors on this new series, which has got success last year, but it can surely has a lot more reach, has a lot more public and fans to reach. So I hope that you get a chance, and if you don't mind my voice and my accent, I hope you get a chance to listen to it and just get to know how MotoE works and how's Energica, and get a little bit more interested into electric vehicles, and just to have some laughs and have a good time in those strange times,
Yeah. So for Instagram, we can follow you by looking for Energica. How do you spell that?
Energica, yeah, Energica Motor Company.
Sure. How do you spell it?
I usually found it, yeah.
And you spell it as Energica?
Yes, correct. Thank you for helping me with the spelling. I think I would have been able to do it, but not as fast as you. So thank you so much for that.
All right, perfect. Hey, again, super interesting. Thank you so much for
having me.
Okay, you're welcome. And love to have you back on the show once racing starts.
That would be great. Absolutely. So I can tell you more about how the series is unfolding and how everything is unfolding. I hope we'll find some more topics to talk about, because we talk about a lot of stuff today. So
a lot going on. Don't worry, we'll figure it out.
All right.
So, okay, Val. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
See you soon.